The music didn't stop, but it wavered. A single violin note faltered, just long enough for 200 guests to fall silent. My cheeks burned. Blood tasted sharp and metallic in my mouth. Somewhere behind me, champagne flutes clinked against the marble floor. I didn't move, not at first. My name is Elena Harper. I'm 30 years old. And 5 seconds ago, my father, Richard Harper, retired Marine and king of family pride, had slapped me across the face at my brother's wedding. "You selfish little girl," he hissed, his breath hot with bourbon and rage. "After everything we've done for you?" I turned toward him, feeling the swelling forming on my lip. My mother, Marlene, had gone pale, her hands trembling, not out of concern for me, but for the scene we were creating. She glanced toward the head table where photographers had frozen mid-frame. I didn't answer him. I looked past him, over his shoulder, at the reason we were here. My brother, Nathan Harper, still in his tailored tuxedo, seated beside his new wife, Kelly. He didn't rise. He didn't flinch. He smirked. Of course he did. Minutes earlier, they had cornered me by the dessert table. My parents had told me to hand over the penthouse. "You're just one person, Elena," Marlene had said, arranging a tray of cupcakes as if it were any other day. "Nathan and Callie need a place to build their life. Be reasonable." Reasonable. That's what they always called it when they took from me and gave to him. I told them no, calmly, directly. I bought that place with my own money. I lived there. Nathan and Callie could find something else. And now this. His handprint blooming across my face while my mother worried more about neighbors than me. I blinked once, then smiled. Not out of grace or defiance, but clarity. "You'll regret this," I said, loud enough for the head table to hear. "All of you will." Then I turned and walked out of the ballroom. My heels echoed against the tile like a gavel, and nobody followed. The cold hit me as I stepped outside, but I didn't shiver. I kept walking past the valet, past the floral arch my mother had obsessed over for weeks, past guests pretending not to look. My hands were steady, but something in me had shifted. Not broken, just settled. When I was 24, I started saving for that penthouse. 60-hour work weeks, no vacations, night shifts, weekends. I wrote back-end code for banks, then freelanced. On the side, building billing systems no one wanted to learn but everyone wanted to own. I worked out of a tiny cafe on 5th called Juniper and Black. Long wooden tables, a harbor view, and a barista named Mark who never asked questions. That cafe became my refuge, my anchor. I made my down payment 3 years later. No help from anyone. Not from my father, who said I should invest in a future with a man, nor from my mother, who called the place too cold, too modern, too far from the family. I moved in alone, furnished every corner with purpose. That penthouse was the first space truly mine. Meanwhile, Nathan had bounced through 5 business ideas by then. The last involved drones and coffee delivery, the one before, NFTs for dogs. I think my parents bailed him out each time, quietly, relentlessly. He lived rent-free in a condo they owned, calling himself Between Ventures. Somehow, I was the selfish one. They never noticed when I stopped showing up on holidays, when my texts were 1 word short, when I politely declined every Sunday dinner, every call that began with, "We were thinking," and ended with, "Nathan, could use your help." They assumed I was quiet, because I had nothing to say. Truth is, I stayed quiet because I knew one day I'd need them to forget how much I'd learned while they weren't looking. I didn't drive home. The penthouse felt too loud with memory, too exposed. I couldn't face the silence it would offer tonight. Instead, I turned left at the waterfront and pulled into the gravel lot behind Juniper and Black. The cafe was quiet, almost closing. A single bulb above the counter cast a golden glow over polished wood. Mark was there, drawing glasses with the same quiet rhythm he always kept. Mid-30s, patient-eyed, the kind of man who listened more than he spoke. He looked up as I entered, and for a second, his face changed. Not surprise, not concern. "You okay?" he asked, already reaching for the mug he always used for me. "My father slapped me," I said, walking to my usual table by the window, "at my brother's wedding, because I wouldn't give them my penthouse." Mark said nothing at first. He set the mug down, black coffee, 2 sugars, and added a chocolate muffin beside it. "On the house," he said. "You look like you need it." I sat there for a long while, staring at the harbor lights reflecting on the water, flickering, as if someone were shaking the surface. For the first time since the ballroom, my chest cracked open. But I didn't cry from hurt. I cried from fury. For years I had done everything right, earned my place, asked for nothing. And this was my reward. Smacked in public because I refused to hand over what I built. They didn't want a daughter, they wanted an asset. Somewhere between the cooling coffee and untouched muffin, a new clarity settled. If they could take from me that easily, what would they try next? I opened my laptop. My hands didn't shake. In the soft hum of the cafe, I began to plan. The next morning, the doorman called before I finished my coffee. "Miss Harper, your parents are here." They weren't announced. Of course they weren't. I dressed with care. Slacks, dark blouse, hair pulled back, clean lines, quiet power. When I opened the door, my father was already pacing, jaw clenched. Richard Harper, former sergeant still acting like the world owed him obedience. "Where are you going?" my mother asked, voice sharp beneath her pearls. "We need to talk about last night." "Work?" I replied, locking the door behind me. "Some of us actually have jobs." My father stepped in, grabbing my arm. "Don't you take that tone, after your behavior yesterday." I pulled away, calm as glass. "Touch me again and I'll call security." He hesitated. I didn't. "There are cameras, you know, high resolution, multiple angles at the country club." That stopped him. Marlene, usually poised, paled visibly. "You wouldn't," she said. "Try me," I replied, turning toward the elevator. "Oh, and change the locks if you want. It won't matter. Everything valuable is already in secure storage." As the door slid shut, I watched them blink, confused, not angry, as if realizing for the first time I wasn't the same girl they used to corner in the kitchen and guilt into giving up weekends and money. Silence. This time, they didn't follow. Their first mistake. I didn't answer their calls, not that day, nor the next. At first, the messages were predictable. My mother tried guilt. "Elena, come back inside. You're embarrassing the family." Then Nathan weighed in. "Don't be dramatic. Sis, we can talk like adults." And then Kelly. "He deserves that penthouse more than you. He's starting a family." I read each message once, then muted the thread. No replies. I drove back to Juniper and Black, ordered the same coffee, claimed my usual seat. Mark gave me a silent nod. He didn't ask questions this time, just brought my drink and left me to my screen. That afternoon, I opened 3 tabs. One for my lawyer, one for my financial advisor, and one for a real estate listing I'd bookmarked 6 months ago but never pursued. A luxury oceanfront apartment complex called Hollow Shore Residences. Nathan and Callie had obsessed over it, toured it in April, raved about the glass balconies and heated floors. They couldn't afford it, of course, but had been angling to rent a corner unit, hoping my parents would co-sign. Now I was making an offer on the entire building. By sunset, I'd submitted a formal bid backed by years of savings and 2 investment portfolios they didn't even know I had. That night, I pushed a major code update to a private GitHub repo, a property management platform I'd been quietly building in my spare time. It was the same concept Nathan had once tried to exploit for his failed startup. By the time I closed my laptop, phase 1 was finished. They assumed I was unraveling, that I would come crawling back, but I wasn't. I was building, not revenge, not chaos, a boundary forged from brick, fiber cables, and legally binding contracts. They had wanted my home. I was about to demonstrate what I truly owned. 10 days passed in apparent silence. Not complete silence. Messages still came, calls from blocked numbers, anxious voices of mutual friends. Nathan even sent a cousin to check in. Callie posted vague jabs on social media, targeting entitled people who don't support family. I didn't respond. I was occupied. The offer on Hollow Shore residences had been accepted. Paperwork was progressing. My lawyer, Rachel Myers, efficient as ever, flagged every clause. Within the month, the complex would be mine. But that wasn't the part that haunted my nights. The deeper rot ran years back, when Nathan was launching his now defunct crypto platform, Orex. He approached me for technical guidance, asking someone to review his architecture. I offered help, examining his documents and sharing a few of my interface mock-ups, assuming he merely sought inspiration. Instead, he rebranded them, building a front-facing system that relied on 80% of my original code, untested, unsecured, and recklessly modified. When Orex collapsed spectacularly last year, he blamed market volatility. But now, after accessing a few of his old servers, because he never changed his admin passwords, I discovered more than sloppy coding. I found shell corporations, fake consulting invoices, and large transfers to a familiar name. Harper and Associates LLC, my father's side business. They hadn't just stolen from me, they had laundered investor money through my family. I called Rachel. If I report this to the SEC, it could bring them both down, I said. She paused. Do you want that? She asked. I want them to stop. I want them to understand I'm not afraid of them anymore. Then, one final email to my mother. Subject line: we should talk. She arrived the next morning. Marlene Harper, pearls tight at her throat, her face taut. She tried to start with tears, and I let her. But when I turned my laptop toward her to show the financial records, she froze mid-sentence. You don't understand, she stammered. No, I said evenly. You don't. Fraud isn't a mistake, and neither is raising a son who believes stealing from family is strategy. Her hands trembled in her lap. I closed the laptop. We were just beginning. Marlene remained still for a long time. The tears, the softness she had brought in, motherly grief, wounded dignity, had vanished. What remained was calculation. She hadn't come to heal. She had come to contain. What do you want, Elena? She asked finally, her voice tight, measured. I want peace, I replied. No more calls. No more flying monkeys, no more social media updates from Callie about how I abandoned the family. The penthouse is legally, morally, and factually mine. It's off limits. My finances, my work, my future are off limits. And if we don't agree to that... I looked at her. Really looked at the woman who had always chosen silence over truth, etiquette over protection, who taught me that being a daughter meant quietly surrendering what I loved. I gave her none of that. Now I have documents showing Dad's involvement in Nathan's fraud, server logs, payment trails, names, screenshots, and video of him slapping me in public with witnesses. You'd destroy your own family, she whispered. No, I said. You did that when you told me to give up my home, when Dad raised his hand, when Nathan watched and smiled. Her face softened just slightly, something inside shifting, but not enough to speak. I closed the laptop gently. The sound echoed more than I expected. "I'm not asking for anything unreasonable," I said, standing. "Just distance. Just silence." She didn't respond. She rose, gathered her purse, and left. I watched from the window as she disappeared into a black sedan. No slammed doors, no shouting, only quiet. And for once, it belonged to me. A week passed, then 2. No word from Marlene. Richard didn't call. Nathan didn't post. But the silence wasn't peace. It was pressure building behind a dam. The first crack came in an email from my real estate agent. Subject: eviction notice processed. Unit 14C. Nathan and Callie had stopped paying rent. 2 months delinquent. Ignoring notices, blaming miscommunication with the leasing office. What they didn't know, and what no one in the building knew, was that I was the new owner. The name on their final notice was mine. I didn't gloat. I didn't interfere. I let the process play out, quiet, legal, permanent. They moved out, without fanfare. No Instagram posts, no drawn-out goodbyes, just one text from Nathan the night they left. "Mom told me what you're doing. You can't prove anything." I stared at the message for a moment, then attached a screenshot. Server logs showing his full name, time-stamped file access, account IDs. I sent it silently. His reply arrived minutes later. "What do you want?" 3 words. Distance. Total. Distance. No more demands. No more guilt trips disguised as family dinners. No more pretending we were something we hadn't been in years. He tried once more. "You've changed." I replied simply, "No." I stopped pretending. Then I silenced the thread and archived the conversation. That night, I stepped onto the penthouse balcony. The city lights glimmered softly, almost kindly. I thought of all the years spent trying to be good, useful enough. Now, I needed nothing but freedom. They had tried to take my home, and lost their own in the process. It was a Tuesday, evening when the knock came. Hesitant, not urgent. I checked the security camera. Richard Harper, alone in the hallway, shoulders squared as always, but hands nervously adjusting his jacket. I could have ignored him, but curiosity won. I opened the door without stepping aside. He looked older. Then I remembered. His jaw was slack, his eyes no longer surveying the room as if he owned it. 5 minutes, he said. "That's all I'm asking." I said nothing, leaving the door ajar. "They're moving back in with us," he continued. "Nathan and Callie couldn't keep the apartment." "I know," I replied flatly. "I own the building." He blinked, processing. Then something behind his eyes softened. "You," he said quietly. "But how?" "Because I'm good at what I do, Dad. I always was. You just never noticed." He looked down. The silence stretched between us. Not hostile, not awkward, just real. "Your mother misses you," he said. "We all do." "No, I'm saying you miss having someone to boss around, someone to sacrifice for Nathan. That person doesn't live here anymore." He nodded slowly. "I was wrong," he admitted. "About so much. The slap, the way we treated. You, covering for Nathan. I've lost everything because of it." It was true. After I revealed what I had to Marlene, Richard had resigned from his company's board. Rumors began circulating, his spotless record tarnished. "I didn't release anything," I said. The threat alone was enough. He looked up, really looked this time. "You haven't lost everything," I continued. "You still have your golden child. Isn't that what matters?" He exhaled, trembling. "We made mistakes." "No," I interrupted. "You made choices." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "Your mother wanted you to have this. It's an invitation. Her birthday dinner." I took it but didn't open it. "I'll think about it," I said, closing the door. Not loudly, not quickly, but with finality. I held the envelope for 3 days before opening it. No note, just cream-colored cardstock with my mother's delicate cursive handwriting, elegant as performance rather than mere signature. Please join us for Marlene Harper's 63rd birthday dinner. Family only. I almost laughed, but I didn't discard it. On the night of the dinner, I arrived 15 minutes late, after everyone had been seated. I wore black, neutral, present, untouchable, neither dramatic nor mournful. Nathan and Callie occupied the far corner, their once designer clothing now ordinary, department store simple. She avoided my gaze. He barely glanced up. My father, Richard, remained sober, offering a mere nod. My mother's smile was too wide, too quick, as if the room might shatter if I didn't perform. But I observed instead. No questions came my way, no orders. And when I left early, quietly, without fanfare, no one followed. A few months later, I hosted a dinner of my own, not in their home, not family only. On my balcony, my penthouse. There was wine, laughter, the sharp aroma of roasted garlic, and soft jazz playing low. Mark came naturally. So did Rachel, my lawyer, and Jenna, the real estate agent who helped me secure the building. People who never expected me to give up pieces of myself to claim space at their table. We toasted as the city lights sparkled below. To Elena, Mark said, raising his glass, who turned a slap into an empire. I smiled, not from triumph, but from peace. Not silence, not surrender, but choice. They tried to take my home. Instead, they gave me my freedom.